Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. So, as you guys already know, we're in the middle of Banlist season. We are due to a list probably within the next 3 weeks here in the TCG. And a lot of people have scratched in the back of their minds how they should address Snake Eye. What I'm going to do today is going to reminisce a situation that we've had very similar to the Snake Eye format back in 2015. This was almost 9 years ago. Well, this was almost 10 years ago, like almost an entire decade. And why am I sharing this situation in 2015? I think we're in a very similar suit where Konami really has their backs turned if they want to handle this format a little bit better than they did back then. To give context, what you see here on the screen is Nekroz. Some players could be newer in the channel, so they probably don't know what this deck is. So I'm going to give you a little bit of context. Nekroz is a ritual-based archetype that was pretty much very dominant in its time. Throughout the entire year of 2015, this was pretty much our tier 0 deck. This was the Snake Eye of our era, pretty much. And it's really fascinating to see some correlations that we had with the TCG involving how the ban lists were timed back then, because it could give us a little bit of context of how Konami might probably address the Forbidden List here in 2024. As you guys already know, I'm not a fan of ban list predictions. It's very hard to grasp what Konami wants to do at this point, especially since we have so many problems in the game right now. But I still want to do this type of video because there are some similarities to the situations that we have, and things that Konami kind of have to keep at the back of their minds when making and showing our next Forbidden TCG limited list here in 2024. So this is the first list of 2015. As you can see, this list was effective on January 1st. If you remember, our list of 2024 started in January 1st. Back then, Shadows was the best deck of the format, so that warrants the banning of super polymerization. The artifact version of Shadow was one of the better versions, so that involves artifact moral attack also being shown. We also have a few miscellaneous hits. Back then, the format kind of was, I think, favored for Burning Abyss for a little bit until the arrival of Secret Forces. And for those wondering, when did Nekroz started dominating? Secret Forces was TCG legal on February 14th of 2015. So if you guys remember, Phantom Nightmare was TCG legal on February 8th of 2024. So it was around 1 week difference that Snake Eye started trickling our format the same way Nekroz did. And if you want proof, here is proof. Nekroz had it has over 14 national wins. And not only did it have 14 national wins, it had 3 continental national tops. And even after a heavy ban list, this deck made it to the finals of Worlds in that era in 2015. This was the TCG list that happened on April. Take note, Nekroz was already tier 1 or the best deck in mid-February. In this list, we have Preparation of Rites Limited, which was one of the better cards in the deck that are not from directly from their engine. And we have our first engine card getting hit. And despite these 2 hits, this was still the best deck. So this list was already nerfing Nekroz, and it was still super dominant. Let's see what happened a little bit after all the nationals happened. This is our list from July 16th of 2015. As you can see here, we have Dijin Releaser of Rituals and Laval Chain both in the forbidden list. These two cards were culprits because of the Nekroz deck. Does this card seem familiar to you? If you don't know what Laval Chain is, this card has the effect of sending any card from your deck to the graveyard. It was a rank 4 XYZ monster. I think people are already catching on to what was going on here. In the limited section, you had Shurit, the strategist of the Nekroz, and Trishula, the dragon of the ice barrier. Take note, in the OCG, they had other different hits adding to these. And even then, Nekroz still made it to the finals of Worlds. So, if you remember what happened here, we did not have a list on July 16th. Instead, Infinite Forbidden became TCG legal on July 17th. And Konami made a post on their Twitter saying that we're expected to have Banlist at the end of August. See trend that's going on here? This was pretty much an expected list date that we should have had for our TCG if they didn't take precedence of what was going on with Infinite Forbidden. So after two bans of cards that were used with the Nekroz deck and two cards limited from the engine, this deck was still the best deck of the format and was still dominating events. What am I trying to share with the context here? Right now, one of the biggest implications to Snake Eyes is whether or not they should outright gut engine cards from their strategy or not. We already saw in the OCG that Wanted and Snake Eye Ash both got limited, and the deck is still super dominant over there. So let's see what happened at the end of 2015. This is the November 9th, 2015 TCG list. And in here we see Up of the Four Towers. So basically addressing the Clifford deck, which was pretty much the anti-meta deck of the format. It addressed Shadow entirely. Shadow was the best deck before Nekroz. And it also forbid Evil Swarm Exit on Night, which is a card that was very strong in the Nekroz deck. And one of the reasons Nekroz was very good going second. But here we see Shurit, strategist of the Nekroz, also in the forbidden list. And you're probably thinking, oh, well, they banned one card from the engine, that's enough to hit the deck, right? Well, if we look down here, we also see Nekroz of Brionac and Nekroz of Unicorn, also both limited. So what does that tell you about the fate of the Nekroz deck and what happened in the TCG? Konami saw that back then, just not hitting the engine of the deck was not good enough, back in 2015. After multiple bans of cards that were played in the archetype, we are seeing now 4 cards that got banned because of Nekroz and 2 cards that got limited that is directly hitting the power of their deck. So what can we expect from the Snake Eyes deck here in the TCG? I think Konami has to do a little bit of homework and see a similar situation like what happened with Nekroz, and probably do something like that in our next Forbidden Limited list. Again, I have no real predictions of what could happen to the Snake Eye deck. However, if Konami wants that deck to stop dominating, they have to do a hit very similar to this one. You also see that Burning Abyss and Ritual Beast and Shadows also got hit, and like Clifford also really got nerfed. So what does that tell you about our TCG list? Right now, right after Snake Eyes, the only real dominant decks are Tempai Dragons and Yubel. So they might give Yubel another format. Same thing with the Tempai Dragon strategy. But if they want to follow suit to something that happened in 2015, they pretty much have to address all those other decks, because they know that right after that list, those decks could have become more dominant again. So yeah, I'm still unsure what Konami wants to do for our Forbidden list, like at the end of August. But I think they have to do something like the combination of these three lists. We have 1, 2, 3 lists, and let's see how many Forbidden cards we have. We have 4, 6, 11. And I know that Dragon Rulers was a mute point back then, because Dragon Rulers was already like part of the format. And this was, and this is another topic that I kind of want to bring up. The whole reason these Dragon Rulers got forbidden in the first place was because of a strategy that didn't even take off here in the TCG, but it did take off in the OCG. And it involved like one of the Galaxy XYZ monsters, the Dark Matter Dragon. So Konami did a preemptive hit to something that could have been problematic for the game, right on Nekroz format. So if we see a combination of all those lists, we have over 10 cards in the Forbidden section. I'm still unsure if they want to do that, if they want to like put 2 digits of cards worth in the Forbidden section. But if we saw the April list, we already had 4 cards Forbidden, which was the 2 Synchro generic monsters and like Link Kuribo and Summon Limit. So I'd say a good number of cards that could be on the Forbidden list this year would be around 7, maybe 6 or 7 cards. So yeah. So let me know if you enjoyed this type of content. I could share more context on how Nekroz was performing back then. I kind of just wanted to draw a parallel to like what happened back then to what happening now, because nobody likes Snake Eyes anymore. Like Snake Eyes is a point. We're at a point where Snake Eyes doesn't want to like be welcomed anymore. But Nekroz was just as problematic as Snake Eyes, and this deck lasted way longer. So, and even after it lasted so long, Konami just literally nuked the deck to the ground to the point where it has no longer been tier 1 ever again afterwards, even after getting their cards back. So I hope you found this informative to your liking and understanding. More videos coming soon. Keep practicing and keep dueling.